All right, welcome in. If you're anything like us at PFF, you are tired of the same old NFL pregame shows. This is our setup here in the studio in Cincinnati HQ, PFF HQ. We've got these three big TVs. We try and take in as much of the games as possible. We've got a bunch of other screens open as well. But here we are outside of our studio, but inside our, what do you call this? Our PFF lounge area, the couch. Mm-hmm. Two guys sitting on a couch. Everybody else is there in their fancy suits with their pocket squares. We're going to keep it a little bit more casual today, Austin. It's just you and me sitting here in T-shirts. You dressed like a mime.
Hey, I like stripes.
Me dressed.
I'm a big stripes guy.
Like a regular person.
I didn't even own a suit, so.
That doesn't shock me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be honest. That really doesn't shock me. But we're going to do our attempt, right? Mm-hmm. We're going to experiment with this. We don't know exactly what it's going to look like as we go forward throughout the season. We're going to start off, just run through all the games, give you a little bit of fantasy advice, give you a little bit of, our analysis of what we're expecting going forward.
Some matchups to watch. I like matchups to watch.
Exactly, yeah. But as we go forward throughout this experimental process, we'll play around with the time. We'll play around with who we get in here. We might get George or Eric, our data scientists, our experts in that kind of field.
You're already trying to trade me out.
Well, look, I mean, they might have a T-shirt. That's
they might own a suit.
Right, or a T-shirt that doesn't make you look like you should be.
Miming.
Right, trapped in a box. So, we'll see. We'll experiment. But first of all, let's go through all the games, right?
Yep.
The interesting thing is we have this cool preview article that goes up on PFF.com where we give you a little bit of who to watch, a little bit of fantasy advice, a little bit of green line tips. And if you were looking at the Thursday night one, Philadelphia, Green Bay, that would have pointed you in the direction of Devontae Adams, who, of course, had a monster game before getting hurt and going down. But I think that's a feather in the cap of this article to start. So what's the next game up? We got Tennessee at Atlanta as our first game.
Yeah, looking at this one, I think a big matchup to watch is just Julio Jones versus Titans secondary. I think Julio Jones has been lighting it up to start this year. One of the best receivers in football. Keenan Allen actually kind of competing with him for highest yards per route run. I think Julio Jones going against Adoree Jackson and the rest of this Titans secondary, I think is a mismatch, I would say. I think Julio Jones has a huge opportunity in Atlanta to have a big game against Tennessee, especially against a Titans offense that has really struggled out of the gate. Marcus Mariota doesn't look good, has some Titans faithful looking at the QB class in 2020 to kind of replace him. I think the Titans team is going to underwhelm offensively, give the Falcons more opportunities, more specifically Julio Jones more opportunities to kind of have a big day. Yeah,
that yards per route run figure is it's a number that comes out of the PFF data, and it tries to articulate who the most efficient receivers are. So, a guy can go out there and he can lead that game in receiving, but was he out there every single passing snap? Was it more of a weight of how much he was on the field? Yards per route run essentially tells you how productive these guys were compared with how often they were out there on passing plays, running passing patterns. And the statistic basically belongs to Julio Jones since he's coming to the league. He's almost always number one in that number. And he's the only guy that sort of pushes it above 2 yards per route run. Everybody else tries to follow in his wake, get beyond 2, get beyond 3 sometimes. You're right. It's a huge mismatch. I don't see anybody on that Tennessee defense that can actually go one-on-one with Julio. So now you're into the question of how do they try and take him away with multiple defenders?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there really is an answer to that one. Looking at the fantasy football preview in this article, I think they bring up a great point that the Falcons allow a ton of receptions to running backs. I think Dion Lewis and Derrick Henry have been relatively quiet compared to expectations, but they go against the Falcons defense, specifically a linebacking core and safeties that have really struggled to defend running backs in the passing game. And now they're out Keanu Neal for the year with the torn Achilles. I think this is a huge opportunity for Tennessee to kind of exploit that mismatch and try and play to their strengths. I think Dion Lewis and Derrick Henry are two of the better skill position players on this Titans team. I think get the ball out of Marcus Mariota's hands, throw those quick dump offs, get the ball into Derrick Henry and Dion Lewis's hands. I think this Titans team, I still don't think they win this game, but I think that's an opportunity for them to kind of play above expectation and actually put points on the board.
And that's despite the Falcons defense having Deion Jones out there, who's one of the best coverage linebackers in the game. It shows that one guy can't do it all. You can scheme the defensive matchup so that it isn't Deion Jones versus your running back and it's somebody else on there, and that's what they're going to have to do. All right, moving on, we got the Cleveland Browns at the Baltimore Ravens. Cleveland kind of struggling recently.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. I mean, you look at Baker
Mayfield. That's a Q, Austin.
Yes.
That's what we call in the industry a Q.
Yeah, Baker Mayfield, I mean, you have to look at how much he's regressed. I think a lot of it is him bailing out of those clean pockets. I think that's what the narrative across all these preview shows is that Baker Mayfield really struggling behind a bad offensive line. But the offensive line isn't that bad. I think a bigger problem is the clean pockets Baker Mayfield's seeing. He's maybe bailing out of them, running himself into pressure, or kind of speeding himself up, looking at that phantom pressure and maybe throwing the ball earlier than he should, getting scared a little bit. I think a lot of that, is the expectations. It's a mental side of the game where the Browns went into this and Baker Mayfield as like one of the better teams, off-season Super Bowl champs, and a lot of high expectations. And when you kind of get hit in the mouth to start against a bad Titans team and go down against the Rams at home, I think you start to press a little bit in the late in games. You look at his grades in the first half of games, even through quarter 3. It's some of the best in football. It's when he gets into the fourth quarter and they're trailing, and maybe offensive play calling is also in question, but also he's pressing a little bit, trying to maybe do too much in clean pockets, and therefore leading to mistakes.
That's what's really interesting, because we get a lot of people asking, why is Baker Mayfield still grading, relatively well? We have him somewhere in the teens in terms of PFF grades, and the narrative out there is Baker's been a disaster. It's been a nightmare. He should be ranked among the bottom quarterbacks somewhere. And it's all about perception, right? Mm-hmm. Because a game is 4 quarters long. People can play at varying degrees throughout the course of the game. Rarely do you get someone that just plays consistently at the same level all the way throughout. And if you look at where Baker's grade is done by quarters, he said it's amazing. Like the first quarter, he has a PFF grade of 86 so far this season. Mm-hmm. The fourth quarter, it's 40. So when the chips are all down and you need Baker to make plays, that's when he's really struggled so far this season. But overall, it nets out to reasonable play so far. Definitely there are problems, and the play in the fourth quarter speaks for itself. But that also highlights just how much of all this stuff is driven by perception. Mm-hmm. You get to the end of the game, that's when Baker's playing his worst so far through 3 games. So everyone assumes he was playing that way all the way throughout the game. You don't remember the stuff he did in the first and second quarter. All you remember is that it was bad in the third. It got even worse in the fourth. So he must be terribly. He must be grading terribly. But that's the beauty of our system, is that we count all of these plays.
And speaking of that perception, the spread opened up at -5.5, favoring the Baltimore Ravens, and it's jumped all the way up to -7. And at that point, it's a spread pick of the week. If you go to our articles, we do an NFL spread picks article written by George and Eric, and they have this one as one of their spread picks, the Browns covering that 7-point spread. I think they maybe aren't buying into that perception that Baker Mayfield's terrible this year and awful. I think they know that this Browns team, even though it is on the road in Baltimore, I think Baker Mayfield still has played very well to start, and they're going against a Ravens team that I think that he can compete for, at least cover that 7-point spread.
Let's move on to New England at Buffalo, which is, I don't think anyone was expecting to be a battle of 3-0 teams heading into this game. So
no, not at all. Not at all. I mean, the first thing you got to look at is, can Josh Allen actually be an accurate quarterback and a strength for this offense? I think you talk all throughout the week, people asking about pretenders versus contenders of these 3-0 teams, and the reason I'm not 100% on Buffalo's hype train is because Josh Allen still isn't playing that well. He still has that gunslinger mentality where he's forcing a lot of throws, making mistakes, still very inaccurate. However, their defense is one of the most underrated in football, in my opinion. Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde do not get talked about enough as one of the better safety TAMs in the NFL. That pass rush is outstanding. They've gotten a second life out of Lorenzo Alexander. Jerry Hughes, one of the better pass rushers in the NFL right now. I think this Bills defense is way too underrated. But on the other side of the ball, everyone wants to talk about Josh Allen and how much he's getting better, that second-year jump. He's got weapons now, Cole Beasley. But the offense really isn't playing at a very high level. What's better is this defense is playing well, and Josh Allen limiting mistakes maybe more than expected, but at the same time, still not a strength. Like I said, still not a strength for this offense. And until he is that, I don't want to buy into this Bills team as that kind of a contender this year.
Well, he's almost the opposite of Baker Mayfield when it comes to a perception point of view, right? Mm-hmm. It's that he does a lot of things bad still during the course of games, but he's been able to dial up the big play. He's been able to find that game-changing play throughout the course, so it makes you forget those plays will make you forget about a lot of bad that happened before then. Who cares if he missed a bunch of easy passes if he then comes up with the big game changer that makes things all right? Whereas Baker's like the opposite. He's actually doing a lot of good down to down. It's just that when it gets to the fourth quarter and he actually needs to show up, he's been terrible. Mm-hmm. So the perception is, well, Baker's been awful. Josh Allen's actually taken a huge step forward. And the reality with both those things is probably somewhere in the middle, right?
Yeah, I want to go back to expectations. Like, the expectations for Baker Mayfield and the Browns were super high. They've not been that great. He hasn't been that great out of the gate, struggling late in games, while the expectations for Josh Allen were low. Like, he didn't play well last year. You're hoping he just looks a little bit better this year, and I think he does. And I think with that being said, low expectations, he's playing maybe better than people thought, and Baker, high expectations, playing a little bit worse than people thought. I want to talk about the fantasy side of this one. Sony Michel has been awful to start. One of the lowest ranked running backs in forced missed tackles per carry. Has not really been that guy that not we expected to be, but people expected him to be this year as kind of like this, fantasy guy for the New England Patriots. And now with James Devlin on the injured reserve, I think it's going to shift this Patriots offense to run less heavy personnels, maybe get more 3 wide receiver sets out there, which I think hurts Sony Michel's value. I don't think he's going to be leaned on as much to be this kind of power back in like 12 and 21 personnel. With that being said, I like this Patriots receiving core, and I like Tom Brady a lot. I think this passing game starts to kick up, and I think maybe you see a little bit more James White.
The nugget in our article about James Devlin is fantastic, the fantasy slant that Michel scored without Devlin as a lead blocker in week 3, but before that, his last 10 touchdowns had all come with Devlin as a lead blocker.
Fullbacks matter.
Right, so we think that, it's just a fullback, that's not going to change anything. But it's a significant difference to what Sony Michel has been productive running behind so far. So we'll see what kind of impact that has. The Kansas City Chiefs at the Detroit Lions. Patrick Mahomes, we got into trouble during the week. We had him ranked 6th in terms of quarterbacks after 3 weeks. Shannon Sharp called us out.
Yep, that's
Said it
true.
was bull jive.
Yeah, that was. They did call us out for bull jive. And I think you guys did a great video on YouTube.
Right, we responded to the bull jive, showing the bull jive from Patrick Mahomes in the pocket. You can find that on the YouTube channel. Go up. It's worth a watch. It's good fun.
And on that video, I think you do a great job of showing the turnover-worthy plays that people forget about because he's so outstanding.
Right.
But at the same time, you also mentioned his negatively graded play rate. I mean, he's graded at a negative. He's had negatively graded throws at a higher rate than he did last year to start the season, and he did last year to end the season. And I think that gets overlooked when he's a superhero. He can make all these crazy throws.
Right.
He's winning a ton of games. He can put up points in a second quarter, 28 points in the second quarter. But I think when you're playing as well as he is in burst, you kind of miss when he has an open throw and it's overthrown, you overlook it. You're quickly to overlook it.
And it's important to understand the difference that we're not saying he's not the most talented quarterback in the NFL. I think at this point that's almost self-evident, right? Patrick Mahomes is the new Aaron Rodgers in terms of nobody has the ability that he has. He's making throws that pretty much nobody in the game can make. He's certainly making them more regularly than anybody else in the game can make. So Patrick Mahomes is an absolute superstar. He is maybe the most talented quarterback the game has ever seen, right? We're only 2 years into his career, and I don't think that's crazy to put that out there. He's right up there with Aaron Rodgers and maybe better in terms of some of the crazy things he can do. But our grades through 3 weeks are a representation of those 3 weeks. And if you just look at his yards, his touchdowns, his interceptions, you're not getting a complete picture of what's actually happened, right? We have 4 turnover-worthy plays that don't count in the box score because, well, one of them is a fumble in the run game, right? Nobody's looking at quarterback rushing stats, fumbles for those plays. One of them is an interception that was negated. Now, there was a defensive penalty that you could argue influenced it, but I think it was forced into double coverage anyway. So that's a bad play that doesn't show up in the interception column. And then you've got 2 more fumbles within the pocket. So pass plays where now pressure is coming down on him. You don't blame him for that. But once you understand that pressure is collapsing this pocket,
security.
I'm trying to make something happen, I'm trying to get out of here, you have to be able to hold on to the ball.
Yeah.
And he didn't, right? So those are bad, negative plays. The fact that his own player falls on it doesn't save him from it, right? Putting the ball on the ground in a muddy pocket when pressure is coming down on you, when you knew it was there, is bad. Now, there are fumbles where a quarterback doesn't get downgraded, right? If you're cocked back to throw on a guy coming behind you didn't know was there, the classic strip sack, swipe down on the ball, we don't charge a quarterback for those. We don't penalize him for those. He'll be charged the fumble but not penalized. And then, again, if you're just blindsided from the backside, you never knew it was coming, the ball flies out, we don't call those bad plays. But when you know the pressure is there and you still aren't able to secure the ball, those are negative plays, and they get hidden from those simple box score stats of touchdowns and interceptions.
And when you have 4 negatively graded plays like that, it can drop you to 6th in PFF's passing
We're talking
grades.
about 4 plays,
Exactly.
the difference between 1st and 6th.
And it's weeks 1 through 3, a very small sample size. When you have negatively graded plays like that on a small sample size, it's going to bring your grade down a bit. But still, he's 6th in the NFL in passing grade because of all the success he's had.
Right.
He leads the NFL in big-time throws, our highly graded throws. He's still a very good quarterback. No one's arguing that. I think Steve made a great point that by year's end, he's going to probably finish in the top 3 in passing grade because we know he has that ability. We saw what he did last year. Small sample size out of the gate. He's made some mistakes holding onto the football when pressured, and that's where he sits right now. I think we don't think Gardner Minshew is probably going to be top 10 at the end of the year, but through week 3, that's how he's played. He's limited turnover-worthy plays, and I think it's it's a great opportunity to kind of explain the grades and explain the process, because I think sometimes, if we built a grading system that the top 10 quarterbacks would always be the top 10 quarterbacks in passer rating, what would have been the point? We're trying to build a grading system and a process that shows you who are actually the highest performing quarterbacks regardless of box score and traditional stats, and I still think that's what we're doing.
You don't think Gardner Minshew is going to be top 10 by the end of the season?
I believe in the mustache.
How dare you?
I believe in the mustache. I do not believe in his supporting cast, and I do think that his limitation from an arm talent perspective is going to catch up to him. Maybe not to a point where he's an outside the top half of the NFL, but it could be to a point where he's not top 10.
So what else is worth watching in this game other than Patrick Mahomes and the insane Kansas City offense?
I got to go to the Detroit Lions. These guys are undefeated.
They're the other team in the game, so they're probably worth watching as well.
On the offensive side of the ball, Matthew Stafford's playing a lot better than maybe people expected, and same with Marvin Jones, 29-year-old veteran, 10th in receiving grade right now, has been performed well on contested catch opportunities. That combo right there, and Kerryon Johnson, who's forcing missed tackles, drawing a lot of highlight reels on Twitter. I think this offense is a bit underrated. I think for a long time the Lions have been an afterthought in the NFL race, but at the same time, I think right now, I don't know if they win this game. It is in Detroit, though. I think maybe this game is close, but I don't know if they win this game. But at the same time, I think Detroit Lions, in an NFC North that I still think is up in the air, I think they can compete.
Fantasy Spotlight says keep an eye on TJ Hawkinson because he had that crazy week 1, 130-something yards. Week 2 and week 3 together, 8 yards. So the truth probably lies somewhere in the middle, right? He hasn't just become a completely useless human being over the past 2 weeks. So expect that to come back somewhere towards the middle and him to actually have some kind of useful fantasy production. So if you've been
calling it out on NFL Game Day right now, watching the show, according to PFF, Baker Mayfield 101.3 passer rating on play action or RPOs this season. PFF, NFL Game Day, loving the PFF data right now.
So apparently there is some useful things on these pregame shows.
Let me remind you this. Before that, Steve Mariucci was dressed up as Gardner Minshew with the Washington State shirt on. So you do get that aspect of it.
I'm not saying it's all wins. I'm just saying there's some useful things in there, and they begin with the PFF stuff.
Shall we go to Houston, Carolina Panthers?
Let's do that, Austin.
All right, cool. So Kyle Allen, and I think people have been saying this, but I think it's not been hammered enough. It looks like an upgrade over an unhealthy Cam Newton right now. I think they opened up their vertical passing game a little bit more, got Curtis Samuel involved a little bit more, and I think you're going to see that continue against the Houston Texans. I don't think this Houston Texans defense is a good defense. I think in the secondary they're struggling. They cut Aaron Colvin after he allowed a perfect pass rating to start the season. And I think they're struggling in the secondary. I do think their pass rush is great. I like J.J. Watt. But in that secondary, I think there are advantages to the Carolina Panthers, especially if Kyle Allen looks the part like he did last week and stretches the field, gets it to Curtis Samuel and DJ Moore.
There's an interesting battle here in the trenches between Carolina's pass rush, which has been one of the better units in the NFL. Brian Burns looking pretty spectacular.
Do love Brian Burns.
Out of the gate. And then you got Houston's offensive line, which is moving in the right direction. They're taking steps. Obviously, you got Laramie Tunsil coming on board, but they've chopped and changed a little bit with the starting five, and I think they're starting to dial in on what the best five guys actually looks like. But now you're actually, it's kind of two ascending units going going against each other, and we'll see which one is actually still moving in the right direction by the end of this game.
A name I want to bring up, James Bradbury, the corner for Carolina, leads the NFL in passer rating when targeted, has the lowest passer rating when targeted. I don't know if he'll finish that game as this, going against DeAndre Hopkins and company, but I think he's playing a lot better, and he's a guy that, as you watched him kind of progress throughout his career, I think he's in his third year now, has gotten a lot better. I think he's a guy that maybe had some tools to start, but didn't really understand, didn't adjust to the speed of the NFL, and as he's moving forward, I think he's getting a lot better. It shows what you can do when you invest in cornerbacks through the draft and then develop them in a system over time. And the same goes for Dante Jackson. Dante Jackson, a freakish athlete. You saw that on the interception where he almost leaped out of the stadium. And I think if you hone that in and get him to understand your system and learn these cues and his instincts improve, the secondary could be pretty legit. And then when you have this pass rush with Brian Burns leading the way, I think this Panthers defense, and you're not even bringing up Luke Kuechly, this Panthers defense can have an effect on Houston today.
This is a career year for Bradbury so far. He's playing the best football of his career. And previous to that, the best football of his career had been his rookie season. Mm-hmm. So he kind of looked pretty good right out of the gate, taking significant steps back, and now he's back looking to fulfill that potential. So that's going to be interesting to watch. Oakland at Indy. Mm-hmm. What do you got?
Okay, so the spread started here at -7, favoring the Colts, and now it's down to about -6. I think the Oakland Raiders, I think the Colts don't blow out teams has kind of been the narrative. And T.Y. Hilton is doubtful for this game. I think they're also banged up in other places. And Jacoby Brissett, as good as he's been, I think he's played above expectation considering the fact that Andrew Luck retired kind of without notice and kind of threw him into the starting lineup. he's still not a very aggressive quarterback. His average depth of target when kept clean this season is one of the lowest in the NFL. He's not aggressive. And I think to Frank Reich's credit, he's not aggressive.
He's Alex Smith.
Exactly. He does not want to put Jacoby Brissett in a situation where he's pushing the ball downfield and making mistakes. Keep it shallow, give it to the playmakers, and get them involved. And another thing I want to bring up, and I know it's the run game, but it's been really good. The Colts offensive line has played really well, led by Quentin Nelson, and Marlon Mack is taking advantage of that yards before first contact and gaining yards after contact as well.
And the flip side to that is that Oakland's defense last week against the run was
abysmal.
Garbage.
Ugh.
Like, we talked all the time about how, the run game in today's NFL, every defense pretty much plays gap sound football, at least now.
At
right?
least.
They might lose at the point, but they have a guy in the gap, right?
Mm-hmm.
Raiders didn't even do that against the Vikings. So if that happens again against the Colts offensive line,
and it went against the Vikings offensive line that's not outstanding, but the scheme I think is being really well run there. With the outside zone scheme looks very good. Garrett Bradbury struggled in pass protection. He's been awful in pass protection, but he's been very good as a run blocker. That goes back to his time at NC State, one of the best outside zone blocking centers in college football. And Dalvin Cook is feasting behind that offensive line. He feasted on that Raiders defense. Linebacking core is a weakness. Secondary is a weakness. The defensive line lacks stars. I could see this Raiders defense losing this one. I think Derek Carr is capable, and that Raiders offense is capable of putting up points against Indy. But this defense, again, is such a weakness for this team that Jacoby Brissett could go in here maybe and just light it up.
Right. This is the perfect game for a game-managing quarterback. You should be able to dominate on the ground, running the ball. Brissett can have like 150 yards on 12 of 15 with a touchdown kind of thing. And then the run game just smashes the Raiders, and that's how they win the game.
And that's the fantasy slant. Raiders' run defense grade, according to PFF, is the third worst in the NFL. And you're going against a Marlon Mack, who's been outstanding, and a very good Colts offensive line. I think they could get hammered over and over to a point where Marlon Mack racks up 30-plus touches and a lot of fantasy points.
Their best bet to win this game is their own offense getting points on the board and trying to at least put the Colts in a hole.
They need need their running back to have some success. They drafted him in the first round, Josh Jacobs. He's forcing missed tackles at a high rate. Richie Incognito looked very good too. He earned our team of the week, a team of the week spot this past week, a very high grade for him coming back from that 2-game suspension. This offensive line gets going, and they can get that Josh Jacobs involved. I think it helps this Raiders team because you don't want Derek Carr throwing the football a ton. You've seen what he can do when he's pushing the ball downfield. He makes more mistakes than you'd like right now. And the skill positions, they just cut Ryan Grant. After he started week 1, and now he's cut. Not good enough. And now you have J.J. Nelson, Tyrell Williams, Darren Waller, a bunch of guys that I don't know if they're starting on other NFL teams, playing for this Raiders team, and you're expecting this passing game to have any level of success. I think no. And I really do like this Colts defense from a schematic standpoint. I could see the Raiders needing to lean on the run game just to save themselves from mistakes.
All right, let's go to Miami, where the Los Angeles Chargers roll in to take on the tanking Miami Dolphins. Melvin Gordon has come back, but probably isn't playing bar emergencies.
They said they want to get him involved limited amounts of time.
Right.
From a fantasy standpoint, I'd say don't start him.
Yes.
I would say not bring him up. I think the biggest thing I'm watching here is not the running back position. I don't care if it's Melvin Gordon. I've written about it at length at PFF. Austin Eckler can do everything and then some in Melvin Gordon's shoes. I don't know why they would ever pay Melvin Gordon. I want to bring up the situation, too. Melvin Gordon sits out 3 weeks. He comes back without a contract. I think he lost about $2 million or whatever it was. I don't know why the Cowboys didn't do that too. The Cowboys could have been in a position where they don't pay Ezekiel Elliott. He sits out weeks 1, 2, and 3. He's losing money. The Cowboys are winning games behind the best offensive line in football and the rookie Tony Pollard. I think they could have had a similar situation where they're not committing as much money as they did to Ezekiel Elliott.
It is still crazy hard to fight the perception of correlation versus causation. Trey Wingo had a tweet during the week that was like the Eagles win games when they run the ball and when they don't. It's the same thing, right? The idea that everybody who has a 100-yard running back wins at a much higher rate, it's not the reason they're winning at a much higher rate. But it's very, very hard to fight that, right? It is ingrained in the psyches of everybody that's in the league. There are smart teams out there that have realized that it's not true and fight against it, but there's so many teams out there that haven't got there yet, right?
Can you imagine this Dallas Cowboys team starting out of the gate with the offense they had without Ezekiel Elliott and being 3-0? I think it would have happened too. I don't think it's
just look at the production Tony Pollard has had.
Exactly.
It's not like there's been a giant, reduction when Zeke goes to the sideline and Pollard comes in.
I would 100% believe that the Cowboys, without Ezekiel Elliott, have the same start that they've had this season, and everyone is talking about how they don't need him, and I think he might come back like Melvin Gordon did, and they don't have to pay him as much money as they did.
This has been horrendous for Melvin Gordon in terms of his leverage.
Absolutely.
His leverage has disappeared.
The memes of it that have come out on Melvin Gordon watching the Chargers have been fantastic.
And the sad thing is that this would have been a great game if you were like timing it. It's like, okay, this has gone badly, right? The holdout has gone to hell. I need to get back on the field and show them that I'm good and worth paying again. Miami's coming up. I get back on the field for Miami. I rush for 200.
Torch them.
Leverage is back, right? But then they're not really playing him. And they've been back and forth in this because they've had a guy in a walking boot. So it's, now of course you play it.
Yeah.
But still, it seems to be Austin Eckler getting the Lions' share of the work today. And then maybe Melvin Gordon gets worked in a little bit here and there.
Yeah, I think the fantasy football slant for this one is start every Chargers player
all
that you have.
All of them.
Keenan Allen right now is on a career year pace. He leads the NFL in target share. That's his targets percentage of total team targets. He leads the NFL in that, leads the NFL in yards per out run, and he has the best receiving grade in football.
Right, and there are a lot of people that think Xavier Howard is one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL. This is the game that will show you why that isn't true. Right?
I think that game was last week against Amari Cooper.
That was one game. This will be another game to show you why that isn't true. Xavier Howard can have really good games, but he does not do well against receivers that have a really savvy route running and understand how to make him lose his leverage and go to the wrong place.
I think this is a great game to watch if you like watching great route running, because Keenan Allen going against Xavier Howard, it's going to be fantastic because Howard's going to shadow him, and then they're still going to pump him the football like they do with the leading target share. I think you're going to see a lot of highlight plays from Keenan Allen today. I want to talk the green line slant a little bit.
Do it.
Chargers at Miami Dolphins. Chargers at Miami Dolphins was in the Spread Picks article at plus 16, saying the Chargers don't go into South Beach and beat them by more than 16 points. The line since then has moved to 15. A little bit of sharp action there. We'll take that. I don't know where they stand at plus 15, but I will say that at plus 16, it was a good get if you did get the money at that point.
Let's go to Washington at New York, where the only reason to watch this game for me is now not playing. Terry McLaurin.
I need your advice on this, or your take.
Okay.
There's a little bit of debate on Twitter on what his nickname should be. Should it be Scary Terry, which some people hate, or F1? Which is apparently like a type of plane or something, and he's fast. I don't even know. But that one's leading.
Also a type of car.
I think it's a car. I think it's a car. Sorry about that.
F1 is a way better nickname than Scary Terry. That's terrible.
Is it because Scary Terry sounds lame, or is it because Scary Terry is overplayed? I feel like anyone named lame. Okay,
no,
but I still think
terrible.
there's an argument against Scary Terry because anyone named Terry that plays well is instantly Scary Terry, and I feel like I've used Scary Terry. And I kind of hate it.
It's just a bad name. You shouldn't use that.
Really?
No.
So we're going F1.
F1 I like.
So F1's out. What'd you say? We just got in from the booth. F1 McLaurin is a racing team, apparently.
Oh, okay.
So I like it.
Fair enough. That works.
All righty then. Thank you, Tyler.
Anyway, he was supposed to be going up against Janoris Jenkins. Now that won't be happening because he's hurt. But that would have been a fun matchup to watch. What else have we got in this game?
Okay, looking
it's Daniel Jones 2.0.
Exactly. Daniel Jones 2.0. You got Daniel Jones going against a Washington Redskins defense that, in a word, has sucked. Yeah. Pass rush doesn't look great. Secondary's getting beat. Josh Norman allowed a deep touchdown on Taylor Gabriel the last time he took the field. I think Daniel Jones, what I need to see here is excellent play from a clean pocket. He looked great under pressure, but we know that's a very volatile metric that can lead to mistakes and a kind of up and down play. What we need to see here is accuracy on open throws from a clean pocket. He's going to have a lot of clean pockets to this one. Can he hit guys in stride? Can he have that accuracy plus percentage that we look for in the quarterback position because it's stable? And if he does that, I think, it will kind of put an exclamation point on what has been a promising start for Danny Dimes.
The other thing, I think, is the quarterback situation for Washington, right? How long do they give it before we just say, look, to hell with this, let's put Dwayne Haskins in because God knows we're not getting anything of value out of the other two.
Yeah.
So that'll be fun to watch.
But I think, you've seen the reports about Dwayne Haskins. I don't think they want to put him in because maybe he's not ready yet, and they'd almost rather go Colt McCoy than him.
It sounds like there's
a
split in the building.
Oh,
there's a divide.
Oh, no. You hate to see a split in the
sides being drawn. Some people want Haskins. Some people
who want Colt.
Who wouldn't want to see more of Colt McCoy?
Oh, man.
So, that's going to depress you if you're a Washington fan. But anyway, at some point during the season, Haskins is going to get on the field, and that should be interesting to watch.
Shall we go to Arizona?
Let's do it. Seattle Seahawks, who weirdly lost to the Teddy Bridgewater-led Saints at home, are now going on the road against the Arizona Cardinals. What are we looking for here?
So Russell Wilson, I think, is going to eat up this Cardinals defense. This Cardinals defense has been awful out of the gate. I think you've seen like fantasy football articles written by our team that anyone playing a Cardinals defense right now matters. And I think most importantly, you put in the fantasy football preview here, tight ends. T.J. Hawkinson ate them alive in week 1. You have Mark Andrews playing well. Even Greg Olsen got involved in week 3.
So I think Will Dissly time.
It's Will Dissly time for the Seattle Seahawks, and I think with that being said, it's going to be more than just a tight end too. I think Tyler Lockett has a big day. I think you see everywhere across the preview shows that Tyler Lockett is in line for a big day. Byron Murphy has struggled a little bit out of the gate, playing a little bit more press than I feel like I expected out of Arizona. Playing a little bit more press and struggling, and this pass rush is not getting there in time. And overall, this defense has really struggled to a point where Seattle, if they open it up in the passing game, I know they're a run-heavy offense, but if they open it up in the passing game, I think they do have success.
Is this our last week before Patrick Peterson gets back?
I think so.
So that'll be big for that defense. The thing I'm interested in is this Cardinals offense, right? It feels to me like it's only halfway through an install, right? It looks like an air raid system. It's gone with the 10, 11 personnel.
More
it's
than
gone
like
spreading people wide.
Yeah.
It looks like one, but it doesn't seem to have the advanced stuff in there yet. It doesn't seem to have the actual play concepts and the route concepts and all this kind of stuff that dials up people getting open. It just seems like we're running the basics, and then somewhere down the line there's a promise of better things to come, and I'm kind of waiting for that to happen. I don't know if it's even a year 1 thing. Maybe we have to wait until year 2 of the system before all that stuff comes out. But right now it just seems like a kind of like a bad imitation of an air raid system.
I think it's a very aggressive system and I know he's done this system before. He played this at the college level, but still a very aggressive system to play as a rookie quarterback. You're constantly being asked to push the ball downfield and run a vertical passing game with 4 wide receiver sets. And I think against NFL defenses, it is hard. There's a reason that no team ran 10 personnel more than 8% of the time last year. It's a difficult offense to execute in the NFL, given the level of athleticism, the changed hash marks or whatever. And not only that, you're asking a rookie quarterback, any rookie play caller in the NFL, and Cliff Kingsbury, to run this aggressive offense, high-risk offense. And I think you're seeing more risk. I mean, the risk not really pay out the reward right now. I think you need Kyler Murray to get comfortable, start to recognize these defenses a little bit better. I think this system can have success, but you need someone with more experience at the coaching level and at the quarterback position.
You also need the personnel, right? And they've had, they attacked it a lot in the draft, but we've got Hakeem Butler on IR, not playing this year. We've got Andy Isabella not on the field. He's had like 1 snap. His snaps are going to a guy that was like a 2018 undrafted free agent. So
Demary Bird or whatever.
No, I completely forget the guy's name.
Okay.
But anyway, damn it. Why am I gonna? All right, we'll come back to it. But the point is, the guys you identified in the draft as people that could potentially play a role in this offense are not there yet. So consequently, it's not looking the way it maybe should. So I just think there's more to come from this offense, and we'll eventually see what that looks like down the line.
Trent Sherfield.
Yes, Trent Sherfield.
To dive in there, check it out. Yeah, I agree with you. 100%. I think it's time to move on. We're staying in the NFC West.
Yep.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers at Los Angeles Rams. I think this is a huge opportunity.
Other way around. Oh, no, you're right. Sorry, I was listening to you the other way around. Never mind. It's my brain firing.
Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, 2 highest graded players on the offensive side of the ball for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers so far this year, I think need to act like it this game. I think they're going against a very tough cornerback matchup in Marcus Peters and Aqib Talib. This is a good opportunity for Jameis Winston to really play above expectation. They're going into L.A., going from East Coast to West Coast, and having to play what I think is a good defense, good pass rushers, great talent in the secondary. Can Jameis Winston and this offense that had all this hype entering the year do it against a good defense? My guess is no. I mean, Jameis Winston going against good defenses has struggled, turns the ball over way too much, makes some poor decisions. But I think if he can prove it here and turn in a strong performance, I think there's reason to be hopeful for this Buccaneers team.
I like the fantasy slant in this game because in fantasy land, running backs still matter. The run game still matters.
100%.
We get told all the time how it doesn't matter to winning games, but in fantasy, that's what does win you the games. Only the Patriots have a better run defense grade right now than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Vita Vea has looked fantastic for those guys. Even Ndamukong Suh, who has got no pass rush whatsoever, has been defending the run well, right? So their run defense is really good. Todd Gurley is already something of a question mark and a fantasy letdown so far this season. Now he's going up against a legit defense. Forget about it. So that's the fantasy slant in this game. Don't even think about Todd Gurley. Put somebody else in there and go that way.
Right now, Malcolm Brown is averaging more yards after contact per attempt and more forced missed tackles per attempt than Todd Gurley.
Don't do it.
I just, Malcolm Brown, again, time and time again, I feel like we're proved right that, running backs a very replaceable position, and if you can find guys that can add yards above expectation in the later rounds / undrafted, like these Malcolm Browns that keep popping up, I just don't understand how you ever commit $90 million to a running back like the Cowboys did with Ezekiel Elliott. I hate to keep bringing it up, but I just can't get on board with it.
Yeah, I agree. So what we got? 2 more games left. We got Minnesota at Chicago. This is fascinating because you got Kirk Cousins against young Kirk Cousins in
Mitch Trubisky?
Mitch Trubisky.
You think he's a young Kirk Cousins?
In terms of,
I think he's more of like a young Bortles. Is where I stand with him.
he's more. They're not like comparable players in terms of skill set because obviously Trubisky brings stuff in the run game that Kirk Cousins can only dream of. But in terms of like inconsistency, in terms of being a massive letdown compared with what you want them to actually achieve down to down, and in terms of being, I think, the thing that holds back their respective offense. Like right now, both these teams want their run game to succeed. They want as little as possible on the shoulders of their quarterbacks and just hope that that's enough. Strong defenses, etc. It's kind of interesting because, this 2 games this season have been exactly what Mike Zimmer wants, right? Which is strong Minnesota defense, which is run game being successful, whether or not the run blocking has been really good. Dalvin Cook going off, and then Kirk Cousins basically doesn't have to do anything. Shows up, delivers a couple of
And with
easy
Kirk
passes.
Cousins not having to do anything, Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs are ruining people's fantasy teams.
Yes.
You see that constantly. People are crying emoji about Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs right now, not because they're not talented players,
right,
but because they're not being utilized in this offense. And I think I saw someone say Bills should inquire about trading Zay Jones and a day 3 pick for Stephon Diggs. That was egregious, by the way. But Stephon Diggs, if you're not going to use him, same with Adam Thielen. I mean, this is a huge concern. Both these guys are, I would say, strengths for this offense. I think they do need to get more involved somehow, some way.
But at some point, you're then going up against a Chicago Bears defense that is pretty dominant up front. Will probably shut down this run game. Now you're going to have Kirk Cousins make some plays again.
Yikes.
And
the secondary's good, too.
Can he?
Yeah.
So far, the answer has been no.
I would say no, especially against this Bears defense. It's a very good Bears defense. And with the Kirk Cousins at the helm, I think if you turn this game into he has to throw 25, 30 times this game, I think it's going to end up being an L, especially going into Chicago. I think the spread is set at -1 favoring Chicago. This game should be close. That's what Vegas is saying. But again, if Chicago gets to a lead early and they have to abandon the running game that they love so much in the first 3 weeks, Kirk Cousins having to put this game on his shoulders, I think, would be a problem for Minnesota.
Yeah, and then I think the same thing is kind of true on the other side in that the Vikings defense has played really well. They should.
You don't want the game on Trubisky's shoulders.
Right, and that's kind of what this looks like. It's basically coming down to which quarterback is able to actually stand the tallest in a game that's probably going to.
You got to bring up QB size right now. We just talked Kyler Murray. Okay, you don't got to bring up who stands tallest.
Well, both these guys are over 6 foot. They're okay.
Okay.
Jacksonville at Denver.
Wait, I had one more comment on Chicago.
Do it. Quick.
Okay, so with Nagy and Trubisky, I feel like every time Nagy tries to get a little bit more creative, pull back a little bit on what he's doing with Trubisky, he has to go right back in and wrap him up and not open up this offense. I think he wants to get creative. He wants to put more on Trubisky's plate. But as soon as he gives him more opportunity to kind of get things going, he brings it all back down, makes it way more conservative, low average depth of target, crossing routes over the middle, don't push the ball downfield, because he knows when he's put in a position to fail, more often than not, he's making turnover-worthy plays and not having success. Keep the average depth of target low. Don't ask this guy to go through his progressions down the field in a vertical passing game, and just keep him limited, because when he's limited with that Bears defense and a strong running game, you can win games.
Yeah, Trubisky at this point is limiting what Matt Nagy's able to do on offense, and that's bad.
Which is unfortunate, because Nagy's a great player.
Right, and that's bad for everybody.
Yeah.
So Jacksonville at Denver, the Minshew show.
Ooh, I do love Minshew. Minshew right now, I think 8th in the quarterback grade so far through week 3. Very high adjusted completion percentage. When pushing the ball downfield, I think his big-time throws come on those vertical lead throws, where arm talent isn't as important as throw anticipation and kind of ball location. He's not going to be the guy that fires it into tight windows down the field on like a deep in route or something, where 2 defenders are closing in, but he fires it through the middle. But he can, over the top of defenses, put the ball in a good location, especially when DJ Chark is making the receptions that he is right now. I think improvement from DJ Chark, improvement at the quarterback position with Gardner the Mustache Minshew has led this Jaguars team to kind of being a little bit more fun than maybe we expected. I know they paid Nick Foles all that money to kind of have him command the locker room, but all you need is one mustache to command the locker room and some good play. I think Gardner Minshew playing really well, and they're doing so with an absolute liability at running back in Leonard Fournette.
Oh, you went there. You went full liability with Fournette. The fantasy slant in this game is pretty interesting because, The Broncos have actually changed what they've done in terms of who's covering the slot. Chris Harris really isn't a slot cornerback
He's
anymore.
shadowing, right?
He used to be like, that was the negative against him. He's just a slot corner. Like, he doesn't play outside, and he did anyway, but he plays more in the slot. He's not going up against these outside guys. Now he doesn't even play in the slot because they brought over Bryce Callahan, who was one of the best slot corners himself, so Harris is full-time outside. The point, though, is that they're still really good against slot receivers. So if you have D.D. Westbrook, forget about it. Wipe him off your slate. It's not happening.
If you have D.D. Westbrook, just wipe him off your slate for every game. That guy kind of sucks. He dropped a perfect dime over the top. Gardner Minshew, mustache twisted, and dropped it. I'm gonna cry some tears for that. Okay, you need to catch the balls.
You were just scrubbing off all of these Jacksonville players except the mustache.
Yeah, I like Gardner Minshew. I like DJ Chark.
All right.
Leonard Fournette's a little too fat. Did you see that blindside block that he had that he got called for the penalty?
Yeah.
He got fined for that.
People fine for everything.
That's absurd.
Fines
it looks like a
egregious.
great block. I don't understand that one.
Dallas Cowboys at New Orleans Saints.
Last game of the Sunday slate. Do we want to preview Monday?
Yeah, well, let's do it.
Okay,
Let's fire down there.
let's go Sunday slate. This is our game of the week on PFF Greenline. So if you're not a subscriber, you can go to PFF Greenline.
Get all the goodies.
And see all the goodies, see exactly what you get from every game for free. So make sure to check that out. Let's start with my guy, Amari Cooper, playing lights out in a Dallas Cowboys uniform. What's crazy about Amari Cooper is when you target him like he's a number one wide receiver, he produces like a number one wide receiver. In Oakland, this guy was like under 17% target share for majority of like his latter part, the latter part of his career. Now that he's a focal point in this offense, a legitimate focal point, he's having a ton of success. They're moving him around outside in the slot, and I think Dak Prescott, Amari Cooper, Kellen Moore, just a match made in heaven. I think this offense looks very, very good throwing the football through the air.
So this is interesting because you got the Dallas offense that is on fire. It goes up against New Orleans defense, which has not been great.
Not on fire.
And this
is on fire, but not in a good way.
Yes, burning down. The Saints defense is burning down. Things are probably there's not enough water to go around. The flames everywhere, right? And the thing is, this isn't the first season that's happened, right? They've started like the last couple of seasons.
Ryan Fitzpatrick beat them in Week 1 in New Orleans,
and then things have kind of gotten together, and they've got their house in order. They put out the fire. Awesome.
Yeah.
Keep that metaphor going. Is that going to happen this year, or do they just suck?
I don't know. I mean, Marshawn Lattimore needs to play like we saw he was as a rookie. He's really not lived up to that expectation since. This pass rush, I think, is in bursts very good, but at the same time, I think this team misses a dominant Sheldon Rankins. They miss this pass rush that has been good in bursts. It needs to be more consistent. Linebacking core has never really been a strength for this defense. And in the secondary, again, some high-performing players in the past need to get back to that form. I want to go back to the Cowboys offense, though. Okay. This offensive line, in our latest offensive line rankings for PFF.com, number one in football. And they're coming off a week where 3 of their starters made the team of the week: Lael Collins, Tyron Smith, and Zach Martin. Tony Pollard is getting over 100 yards behind this offensive line. Same with Ezekiel Elliott, and Dak Prescott is never under pressure. I'm pretty sure this team leads the NFL in percentage of dropbacks when pressured. I think they're going to have a field day against this Saints defense. And on the other side of the ball, Teddy has not looked great. I think this offense is going to rely on its studs. Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara had very high target shares, very high opportunity shares in that game against Seattle. You're going to see that again. They're going to try and feed those two, get the ball out of Teddy's hands, but I don't think it's going to be enough. I think this Dallas team comes out with the dub.
They're really leaning on Alvin Kamara to a huge degree, but the bottom line is
He's also good.
Right. That's a big part of it. But Teddy either needs to open it up, figure out where else to go with the ball, or this is at some point some team is just going to zero in.
They might need to put Jared Cook's face on where is this guy, milk carton? What happened? In Oakland, he looks like a Pro Bowler, All-Pro, and in New Orleans with, I think, a better offense and more players around him, has really been like overlooked and kind of forgotten about in this offense.
I mean, I think Teddy really needs to open it up because at the moment what he's doing is too easy to defend. It's all underneath. There's no deep shot whatsoever. It's Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, and then forget about it. You might as well not cover anybody else.
I said this on a show or like a radio hit earlier this week, when Drew Brees is playing football, Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, but he makes Traquan Smith look better.
Yeah.
He makes other players look better. When you remove one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the NFL and put in a Teddy Bridgewater, all of a sudden Traquan Smith doesn't look that great. Ted Ginn Jr. maybe isn't that good. I feel like that's a big part of it. You talk about quarterbacks that rely on their supporting cast to have success. Drew Brees is one that elevates his supporting cast. He makes a Michael Thomas, Traquan Smith all look better than maybe they are, and I think that's what you're seeing with Teddy Bridgewater in there.
All right, cool. I've changed my mind. We're not going to preview Monday night.
We're not previewing the Monday slate?
No. This is our Sunday preview show.
Fair. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, we might evolve to something else. So listen, this is a big experiment. We don't know yet what this is going to evolve into, but leave us comments. Tell us what you liked. Tell us what you didn't like. Austin's shirt, for example.
Whoa.
And then we can make some adjustments, right? We will probably at some point ditch the headsets once we figure out how to kill the echo.
What about vertical stripes?
Of the lounge, in addition to horizontal
yeah,
stripes?
or no, maybe
No?
a vertical stripe pants. That'd
Wow,
be hot.
That would be something. Yeah. So anyway, let us know what you liked, what you didn't like. We'll change around. We'll do some different things.
Evolve.
We will evolve. There will be iterations of this show, and we'll figure out what it ends up being by the course of the end of the season.
Absolutely.
So anyway, that's been Austin Gayle and Sam Monson here for PFF. This is our pregame setup. Now let's fire up some games on the TVs and actually watch some football, Austin.
Let's do it.
Bye-bye.